Dawn breaks over Plymouth, North Carolina, on April 19, 1864. Federal gunboats patrol the Roanoke River, confident in their control. But beneath morning mist, something monstrous approaches a Confederate ironclad that will shatter Union naval dominance forever. History pivots on this single moment. I'm Commander James Cooke, standing aboard CSS Albemarle, gripping cold iron rails. This ram represents our desperate gamble, one vessel against an entire enemy fleet. Today, my crew of 60 must prove Southern ingenuity can overcome Northern industrial might. My hands won't stop trembling. The ironclad's sloped casemate deflects light like a primordial beast. Two massive Brooke rifles protrude from her bow, ready to speak destruction. Below deck, engine vibrations pulse through wooden beams. Young sailors sweat in darkness, feeding coal to fires powering Confederate vengeance incarnate. Lieutenant Commander Charles Flusser commands USS Southfield, anchored near Plymouth's waterfront. He believes his wooden warship invincible, protected by superior numbers. But Flusser has never faced an armored ram designed specifically to crush vessels like his into kindling beneath Roanoke's currents. Confidence blinds him. Plymouth has suffered under Union occupation for 2 years. Confederate General Robert Hoke's infantry masses in surrounding forests, waiting for Albemarle's signal. Without naval support, Hoke cannot reclaim the strategic port. Everything depends on my untested ironclad breaking federal control of these waters. Mary watches from her attic window as Confederate soldiers emerge from tree lines. Her brother serves aboard Southfield. Her husband fights with Hoke's brigade. This battle will divide her heart, regardless of outcome. Family loyalty, split by war's incomprehensible cruelty. She prays for impossible mercy. Albemarle's engines rumble louder as we round the river bend. Union lookouts shout warnings, pointing at our dark shape approaching. Sailors scramble to battle stations, loading cannons with trembling hands. Nobody aboard Federal vessels has confronted Confederate ironclad technology in open combat. Their education begins now. I order full speed ahead. Our ram's prow cuts water like destiny's blade, aimed directly at Southfield's wooden hull. My crew braces for impact, knowing thin armor might crack under enemy fire. This moment represents months of construction, planning, hope, all condensed into seconds of terrible uncertainty. Flusser fires first. Cannonballs ricochet off our sloped casemate, spinning harmlessly skyward. The Confederate ironclad doesn't slow. We accelerate toward Southfield like judgment itself, unstoppable, inexorable. Flusser realizes too late that conventional naval tactics mean nothing against this armored leviathan bearing down upon him. Our ram strikes Southfield's starboard side with thunderous violence. Wood splinters, metal screams, men fall. Water rushes through the gaping wound below waterline. Federal sailors abandon stations, diving overboard as their vessel lists heavily. The mighty Union warship begins death throes in Roanoke's cold embrace. Flusser frantically orders a desperate counterstrike. His gun crews fire point blank at our casemate, hoping to penetrate armor at close range. One shell rebounds directly backward, exploding near Flusser himself. The concussion kills him instantly, Union commander destroyed by his own desperate weapon. Irony written in blood, our ram lodges deep in Southfield's sinking hull. I shout orders, reversing engines, but the vessels remain locked together in fatal embrace. As Southfield rolls over, she threatens dragging us down with her. Panic spreads among my crew. Our victory could become mutual destruction beneath these waters. Engineers below deck work frantically, throwing engines into full reverse despite screaming metal. The ram finally tears free from Southfield's corpse with agonizing slowness. As the Union vessel disappears beneath churning water, Albemarle bobs upward like a cork released from depth. I exhale relief. We've survived our first kill. Surviving Southfield crewmen thrash in the river, calling for rescue. Some swim toward shore, others cling to floating debris. We watch them struggle, unable to assist while battle continues. War offers no pause for mercy, no intermission between acts of violence. Death writes history without sentiment. USS Miami, Southfield's sister ship, opens fire on us. Her commander witnessed Flusser's death, his vessel sinking. and now fights with rage-fueled determination. But Miami's shots bounce harmlessly off our armor. The technological gap between wooden warships and ironclads has never seemed wider than this moment. I maneuver Albemarle toward Miami, seeking another ramming opportunity. The Union vessel desperately backs away, maintaining distance while continuing ineffective bombardment. This becomes a deadly dance predator pursuing prey through narrow river channels. Both commanders know only one can survive to claim these waters. Speed determines fate. On Plymouth shore, Confederate infantry watches our ironclad dominate Federal gunboats. Hoke's soldiers cheer each success, their morale soaring with every enemy shell that fails penetrating armor. The naval battle directly determines their land assault's viability. Without river control, recapturing Plymouth remains impossible for them. A Union artillery battery positioned along the riverbank targets us directly. Their elevated angle might penetrate deck armor where naval guns cannot. Shells explode around our vessel, creating massive geysers. One near miss rocks the casemate violently. We face threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Nowhere feels safe anymore. Miami's commander makes a calculated withdrawal, refusing suicidal engagement against superior technology. Other Federal gunboats follow his lead, abandoning Plymouth's waterfront to Confederate control. The Union Navy surrenders the Roanoke River without further contest. One ironclad achieved what seemed impossible hours earlier: total dominance. General Hoke launches his infantry assault immediately after witnessing naval victory. Confederate soldiers charge Union earthworks surrounding Plymouth, their battle cries echoing across water. Federal defenders, demoralized by losing naval support, fight with diminished spirit. The tide shifts decisively towards Southern forces within minutes. Momentum becomes unstoppable. Inside Fort Williams, Union Colonel Henry Wessels watches disaster unfold from multiple directions. His naval support fled, Confederate infantry overwhelms outer defenses, and Albemarle controls the river absolutely. Wessels faces an impossible choice: surrender Plymouth, or watch his garrison die fighting unwinnable odds. Pride demands sacrifice. Mary ventures from her attic hiding place as Confederate flags appear over captured positions. She searches frantically for her brother among Southfield's survivors, asking every wet, shivering sailor pulled from the river. Most don't answer, their eyes empty from witnessing violent death firsthand. War's reality exceeds darkest imaginings. We anchor near Plymouth docks, our mission accomplished. I survey the conquered waterfront with grim satisfaction. My crew emerges from the casemate, blinking in sunlight, faces blackened by powder smoke. We've proven Confederate engineering can challenge Union industrial superiority, but at what ultimate cost to souls? Federal prisoners march through Plymouth streets under Confederate guard. Many Union soldiers seem relieved the fighting ended without further bloodshed. Others stare hatefully at jubilant Southern civilians celebrating their liberation. These men will spend months in prison camps. Their war concluded by one ironclad's unexpected dominance tonight. Southfield's wreckage rests on the riverbed, visible beneath clear water. Flusser's body was never recovered, claimed by currents, lost to history's depths. His widow will receive official notification weeks later. Words on paper attempting explaining how her husband died from his own rebounding shell's explosion. Confederate engineers inspect Albemarle's armor for damage after engagement. Surprisingly, few serious dents mark her casemate despite absorbing dozens of direct hits. The ironclad proved nearly invulnerable to conventional naval weaponry. This victory will inspire additional Confederate ironclad construction efforts. Though none will match our dramatic success here, General Hoke sends dispatch riders to Richmond announcing Plymouth's recapture. Confederate leadership desperately needs positive news after months of strategic setbacks. This victory demonstrates Southern forces can still achieve tactical triumphs despite overwhelming Northern material advantages. Newspapers will celebrate Albemarle's accomplishment throughout remaining Confederate territory tomorrow. Union High Command reacts with shock to reports from Plymouth. Losing control of the Roanoke River threatens Federal strategy throughout coastal North Carolina. Admiral David Porter demands immediate action, neutralizing Albemarle. But destroying one well-protected ironclad will require innovative tactics nobody has yet conceived or attempted successfully. Mary finally locates her brother among survivors, injured but alive. They embrace silently, unable articulating relief through words. Her husband appears hours later, dirty and exhausted from storming federal earthworks. Their family survived April 19th, but countless Plymouth households mourn loved ones lost in battle's violence. Grief surrounds celebration. I write my after-action report by candlelight, struggling capturing today's intensity on paper. How does one describe ramming an enemy warship, killing its commander accidentally, nearly sinking alongside your victim? Military reports require clinical language, but my hands shake remembering Southfield's death throes beneath our vessel. Confederate soldiers celebrate victory with rations of captured Union supplies. They feast on federal hardtack, coffee, preserved meat luxuries long absent from Southern armies. These men understand temporary pleasures must suffice, knowing tomorrow brings new marches, fresh battles. Tonight, Plymouth belongs to them. Tomorrow remains uncertain always. Union prisoners huddle in makeshift detention areas, awaiting transport to prison camps. Many reflect on their surrender's swiftness, how quickly confidence transformed into capitulation. They witness technological warfare's future today, armor defeating wood, innovation trumping tradition. This knowledge provides no comfort during captivity ahead. Hindsight torments them. My sailors sleep aboard our Ironclad, exhausted from combat and its psychological aftermath. Young men who killed enemies today struggle with nightmares depicting drowning federal sailors. Glory and guilt intermingle in their dreams. Victory's celebration cannot erase memories of men screaming underwater, trapped in sinking vessels forever. Confederate intelligence officers interrogate captured Union sailors, seeking information about federal naval deployments. Some prisoners cooperate readily, others maintain stubborn silence. Interrogators promise better treatment for cooperation, but most captives understand sharing military secrets constitutes betrayal, regardless of personal circumstances or promises offered by enemies. Plymouth's civilian population emerges from cellars and attics where they hid during bombardment. They survey damage to their town buildings scarred by artillery, streets littered with debris and equipment. Returning to normalcy seems impossible while Confederate occupation continues. They've traded one military presence for another equally disruptive. Northern newspapers publish exaggerated accounts of the Plymouth disaster, blaming incompetent commanders rather than technological disadvantage. Flusser becomes a martyred hero whose sacrifice demonstrated federal courage against impossible odds. Truth matters less than maintaining public morale for a war entering its fourth brutal year without resolution ahead. Confederate President Jefferson Davis receives Hoke's victory dispatch with cautious optimism. Plymouth's recapture provides temporary strategic advantage, but Davis understands one ironclad cannot reverse the Confederacy's deteriorating military position. He orders congratulatory messages sent while privately acknowledging this victory changes little ultimately. Reality intrudes on celebration. Union Lieutenant William Cushing reads Plymouth battle reports with growing anger and determination. He volunteers commanding a mission destroying Albemarle using any means necessary. His superiors approve, knowing conventional attacks failed completely. Cushing begins planning an audacious nighttime torpedo attack that will either destroy us or kill him. My crew performs routine maintenance, repairing minor damage and cleaning weapons. They understand our vessel represents a critical Confederate asset. Now, the Union Navy will pursue her destruction relentlessly. Every patrol becomes potentially our last. Fame and fear accompany us equally through Roanoke's waters. Vigilance becomes our religion here. General Hoke establishes Confederate headquarters in Plymouth's largest remaining intact building. He meets with civilian leaders, promising fair treatment and restoration of order. But everyone present knows occupation brings hardship regardless of occupier identity. War respects no neutrality, offers no sanctuary to those caught between opposing forces forever. Federal engineers study captured reports about Albemarle's construction and armor specifications. They search for weaknesses, vulnerable points that conventional weapons might exploit. Every technical detail matters when facing an enemy who achieved the impossible through superior innovation. Understanding the Ironclad becomes obsession among Union naval architects and tacticians. Mary attempts resuming normal life amid occupation's disruptions. She bakes bread, mends clothing, pretends normalcy remains possible. But her brother's haunted expression when discussing Southfield's sinking reveals invisible wounds that may never heal. War has entered her home through his traumatized silence, claiming victims beyond those buried. I receive promotion and widespread recognition throughout the Confederacy. My name appears in newspapers, alongside legendary commanders. But I feel profound discomfort with celebrity status earned through killing men. Victory's taste resembles ashes. When I recall Flusser dying from friendly fire, Southfield's crew drowning beneath our ram, Union Admiral Porter devises elaborate plans neutralizing Albemarle using multiple coordinated attacks. He recognizes destroying this single vessel could restore federal control over coastal North Carolina. Every available resource becomes directed toward eliminating the Confederate Ironclad. Albemarle transforms from warship into symbolic target representing Southern technological defiance entirely. Confederate shipbuilders attempt replicating Albemarle's success with additional ironclad construction projects. But material shortages, skilled labor deficits, and Union naval blockades hamper their efforts severely. The South's industrial capacity cannot mass-produce technological advantages quickly enough, offsetting Northern manufacturing superiority. Time favors our enemies, inexorably always. Plymouth's strategic importance increases following Confederate recapture. Supply lines reopen, providing crucial resources to Southern forces operating throughout eastern North Carolina. But this success makes the town a priority target for Union recapture efforts. Plymouth's residents understand they live in contested territory where battles will continue indefinitely ahead. Southfield's sunken hull becomes a navigational hazard and grim memorial simultaneously. River pilots warn vessels away from the wreck site. Local fishermen report seeing debris floating downstream for weeks after battle. The vessel's destruction reminds everyone that technological warfare creates permanent scars on landscapes and waterways forever. I drill my crew relentlessly, knowing complacency invites disaster. We practice gunnery, damage control, ramming maneuvers repeatedly. Each sailor must perform duties flawlessly under combat stress. I understand that one mistake against a determined enemy could transform our ironclad from invincible weapon into iron coffin, trapping us underwater permanently. Union prisoners begin their journey to Confederate prison camps, marching under armed guard. They carry memories of Plymouth's fall, Southfield's sinking, technological warfare's terrifying efficiency. Many will die from disease and malnutrition during captivity. Those who survive will carry psychological scars alongside physical ones for decades afterward. Mary's husband describes storming Union earthworks with mixture of pride and horror. He killed men in close combat, witnessed friends die beside him, experienced war's intimate brutality. She listened silently, understanding that the man who departed differs fundamentally from this traumatized stranger who returned. War transforms everyone it touches. Confederate authorities established defensive positions around Plymouth, anticipating inevitable Union counterattack. Artillery batteries cover river approaches. Infantry dig trenches, protecting the town's perimeter. Every soldier understands they're defending territory won through Albemarle's dominance. Maintaining control requires constant vigilance against numerically superior enemies, seeking revenge and redemption. We patrol the Roanoke River, our mere presence deterring Union naval incursions. Federal gunboats maintain cautious distance, unwilling engaging the ironclad directly. This standoff grants Confederates temporary naval supremacy, but cannot continue indefinitely. Eventually, Union forces will develop tactics or weapons capable of neutralizing our armored advantage completely. Lieutenant Cushing prepares his torpedo boat in secret, testing mechanisms designed sinking Albemarle. He recruits volunteers willing undertaking this suicidal mission, attacking an armored warship at night, using an explosive device attached to a fragile spar. Every participant understands survival chances remain minimal. Honor and duty outweigh self-preservation, always. Months pass. Plymouth adapts to Confederate occupation, while Albemarle continues deterring Union naval operations. But strategic situations shift constantly during 1864. Sherman marches through Georgia. Grant besieges Petersburg. Confederate resources dwindle critically. Plymouth's recapture represents tactical success within strategic deterioration impossible, reversing through individual victories alone. October 27, 1864 arrives. Cushing's torpedo boat approaches us under darkness, evading Confederate sentries through skill and fortune. The explosive spar extends toward our hull. One massive detonation shatters the night. Albemarle's armor ruptures. Water floods interior compartments. My invincible warship begins sinking at her moorings. We settle to the riverbed, defeated not by conventional naval combat, but by innovative desperation. My crew escapes through hatches as water rises. The Ironclad that dominated Roanoke River for months dies ignominiously, destroyed by enemies willing, sacrificing everything for tactical advantage. Confederate naval supremacy ends suddenly as it began. Plymouth falls to renewed Union assault within days of Albemarle's destruction. Without the Ironclad's protection, Confederate forces cannot maintain control against superior Federal numbers. Hoke withdraws his garrison, abandoning civilians to face returning occupation. The town changes hands again, war's terrible pendulum, swinging relentlessly between opposing armies continuously. Mary watches Union soldiers return, her heart heavy with exhaustion rather than fear. She survived Confederate occupation, watched battles destroy her community repeatedly, endured losses that hollow her spirit. Which army controls Plymouth matters less than ending the violence, defining her existence for years. She craves peace above victory. I receive orders reassigning me after Albemarle's loss. I depart Plymouth carrying memories of both triumph and defeat. One vessel's brief dominance before inevitable destruction. My career continues, but nothing will match April 19th's significance. That day represented Confederate naval power's pinnacle and preview of ultimate futility simultaneously. You must understand, historians will debate Albemarle's strategic importance for generations. Some argue her success temporarily disrupted Union coastal operations significantly. Others claim one ironclad's regional dominance changed nothing within the war's broader trajectory. Both perspectives contain truth. Tactical victories rarely alter strategic inevitabilities determined by industrial capacity. Southfield's wreck remains submerged for decades, eventually salvaged by commercial operations seeking scrap metal. Flusser's body never surfaces, dissolved into river sediment, bones scattered by currents. His sacrifice becomes footnote in naval history, remembered primarily by descendants who never knew him beyond family stories and fading photographs. Plymouth rebuilds slowly after the war concludes. Buildings rise where artillery destroyed homes. Commerce resumes along waterfront wharves where ironclads once battled. But the town never fully recovers its antebellum character. War's violence leaves permanent marks on communities, forced hosting repeated conflicts between incompatible ideologies, seeking dominance through destruction. April 19, 1864, demonstrated technological warfare's transformative power and ultimate limitations simultaneously. Armor defeated wood. Innovation challenged tradition. But individual tactical successes couldn't overcome strategic disadvantages rooted in industrial capacity disparities. The Confederacy produced one remarkable ironclad. The Union manufactured dozens. Mathematics determined destiny inexorably. Survivors carry memories of that April morning throughout their remaining lives. They recall Southfield sinking, Albemarle dominating Federal gunboats, Plymouth changing hands through violence. These men grow old, bearing psychological scars invisible to those who never experienced combat's intensity. Their nightmares revisit Roanoke River's cold waters repeatedly forever. Consider the battle's true legacy. It transcends immediate military outcomes. It demonstrated courage under impossible circumstances, technological innovation born from desperation, and war's capacity for consuming both victors and vanquished equally. Plymouth remembers April 19th, not with pride, but solemn acknowledgement that violence solves nothing permanently, only creates cycles requiring generations to heal.